No drama, no words, just strategy. Nicole Kidman's quiet revenge. It started with a whisper, a single phrase floating through the digital corridors of conservative media. They're all pretending. The words, allegedly spoken by Candace Owens, echoed louder than any tabloid headline. And behind them stood a story. Not just about Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban, but about what some believe is Hollywood's biggest secret. For nearly 2 decades, Nicole and Keith were the image of stability in an industry built on illusion. The perfect red carpet couple. Poised, affectionate, always smiling, never scandalous. 19 years of marriage, 2 beautiful daughters, and a reputation for grace and discretion. But in late September, the curtain finally dropped. Nicole filed for divorce, ending a love story the world thought had beaten the odds. The documents told a different tale. The split was so clean, so methodical, that it didn't feel like heartbreak. It felt like accounting. Nicole gets the children for 306 days a year. Keith gets 59. Both waived spousal support. Both kept their individual fortunes intact. The prenup from 2006 ensured every dollar stayed exactly where it started. Keith even prepaid all future child support in a single lump sum, as if closing a contract, not ending a marriage. And that's what sparked the storm. Candace Owens, known for challenging the polished narratives of Hollywood, allegedly used these exact details to make her most provocative claim yet, that what we see as love stories might actually be business deals dressed in emotion. That celebrity marriages, especially at the highest levels, are less about romance and more about reputation management. In her alleged comments spreading across social media, Candace supposedly didn't just call out Nicole and Keith, she called out an entire system, which she referred to as the Hollywood marriage industrial complex. The idea that in the entertainment world, unions are carefully constructed performances. Strategic partnerships meant to sell image, secure publicity, and maintain control. In her words, they're all pretending. Now, whether she actually said it or not, almost doesn't matter anymore. The idea has taken on a life of its own, circulating through talk shows, podcasts, and online forums. People are looking at those court documents. 306 versus 59 days. The lack of financial entanglement. The surgical precision of the split, and wondering if Candace might have a point. But before we dive into theories, let's revisit what we know. The facts alone are compelling enough to make even the most skeptical viewer pause. On September 30th, Nicole Kidman officially filed for divorce in Davidson County, Tennessee, citing irreconcilable differences. The world was stunned. Only a few months earlier, she and Keith had celebrated their 19th wedding anniversary, posting loving photos and sweet captions online. Keith wrote, "Happy anniversary, baby." Nicole responded with her usual quiet affection. It looked perfect. But what the public didn't know was that the marriage had already ended, on paper at least, 2 months earlier. Court filings revealed that Keith had signed the parenting plan on August 1st, long before the announcement was made. In other words, while fans were celebrating their anniversary in June, their lawyers were finalizing the details of separation behind the scenes. And when those details became public, the precision was startling. Nicole would have the girls, Sunday Rose and Faith Margaret, for 83% of the year. Keith would have them for 17. Financially, both agreed to walk away clean. No one owed the other a dime. For 2 people married nearly 2 decades, that's almost unheard of. To Candace's followers, this wasn't coincidence. It was confirmation. In her alleged statement, she said something along the lines of, "These aren't real marriages. They're contracts with expiration dates." And that idea, the marriage as contract, the family as performance, suddenly didn't sound as far-fetched to people scrolling through those filings. Because when a union ends without drama, without struggle, without even the appearance of pain, people start to wonder whether the love was ever real to begin with. Keith Urban's life on tour, away from home more than 200 days a year, only adds fuel to the theory. For nearly 2 decades, he lived the life of a global musician, constantly on the road, while Nicole stayed in Nashville with their daughters, balancing motherhood and film sets. Their schedules rarely aligned. Their lives, though intertwined in public, seemed separate in practice. Even their affection looked like choreography. Public appearances, perfectly timed smiles, romantic tributes on anniversaries. Always camera ready. Always just polished enough to seem genuine, and just rehearsed enough to make you question it. Candace's alleged commentary leans heavily on those optics. The way she sees it, Nicole and Keith weren't simply in love. They were performing love. The custody imbalance, the prearranged finances, the prepaid child support, all of it fits a pattern. The pattern of a partnership that was designed to function smoothly, privately, and predictably, until it no longer served its purpose. But let's step back. Is that truly proof of illusion? Or is it just how two powerful, experienced adults manage a complicated life? After all, Nicole Kidman isn't new to this. This is her second high-profile divorce. Her first, from Tom Cruise, remains one of the most analyzed splits in Hollywood history. When you've lived through that kind of public scrutiny, maybe you learn to protect yourself. Maybe you create boundaries, contracts, and clarity to avoid chaos. Maybe the clean split isn't evidence of performance, it's evidence of wisdom. Still, Candace's alleged theory raises uncomfortable questions. Why was the custody arrangement so uneven? Why no financial overlap after 19 years? And why, if this was a union built on love, did both sides seem so prepared for its ending? Keith signed away the majority of parenting time without a fight. He didn't contest the plan. He didn't challenge the financial separation. He didn't even delay the process. To Candace's followers, that looks less like heartbreak and more like compliance. Like someone following the terms of a contract he always knew would expire. Nicole's calm demeanor during the filing also fed speculation. No emotional outbursts, no statements, no interviews, just a quiet legal process and a return to work. Within days of the filing, she was back on set, smiling on location, poised as ever. It's that poise, that almost supernatural composure, that people interpret differently depending on what they already believe. To some, it's grace under pressure. To others, it's evidence of detachment. Candace Owens, a figure who thrives on controversy and skepticism toward Hollywood, allegedly saw it as proof of something deeper. That the image we're sold of celebrity romance is often just that, an image. In her broader worldview, Hollywood operates like a corporation, and celebrity couples are its most powerful marketing assets. They humanize fame, they sell movies, they shape public narratives. In that system, love becomes branding. And when the branding no longer benefits both sides, the contract ends, swiftly, quietly, efficiently. It's a bold claim, but one that resonates with people who already suspect the entertainment industry of being performative to its core. And when you look at the way Nicole and Keith's story unfolded, the timing, the tone, the paperwork, it almost feels like a case study in precision. June 26th, the anniversary posts. August 1st, the signed custody plan. September 30th, the official filing. Each moment perfectly staged, each step controlled. No leaks, no chaos, no mess. Just a clean ending to what had long appeared to be a fairy tale. And that's the irony. The more perfect a Hollywood marriage looks, the more people doubt it's real. Because in an industry built on illusion, perfection feels suspicious. But here's where the story gets truly complicated. The divorce isn't just about Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban anymore. It's about what this split symbolizes, a turning point in how audiences view celebrity relationships altogether. For decades, fans believed in the myth of the power couple, two stars defying fame and temptation, bound by love stronger than the spotlight. But now, in an era of social media and relentless transparency, that illusion is breaking. People don't just see the glamour anymore, they see the machinery behind it. Candace Owens' alleged remarks tap directly into that shifting perception. Her statement, "They're all pretending," became shorthand for a larger suspicion, that Hollywood love isn't love at all, but performance art. And the more the public examined the details, the harder it became to dismiss the idea entirely. Still, the truth is rarely simple. Maybe Nicole and Keith were in love once. Maybe they built a partnership that worked for them, even if it didn't fit traditional molds. Maybe what looks like a performance from the outside was, for them, just the only way to survive fame, distance, and pressure. Because sometimes, even in Hollywood, love doesn't end with screaming matches or betrayal. Sometimes it ends quietly, in a conference room with signatures and silence. And maybe, just maybe, that's not pretending. Maybe that's professionalism. But for Candace Owens and the millions now echoing her words, it's something darker. Proof that what we call love in Hollywood might just be another illusion. One that keeps audiences buying into the myth, one perfect photo at a time. When Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban's divorce documents surfaced, people thought they were looking at the end of a love story. But to others, especially those influenced by Candace Owens' alleged commentary, it looked like the blueprint for how Hollywood marriages are made and unmade. And the more you look at Nicole's history, the more that theory starts to sound like a pattern rather than coincidence. Candace, in her interviews and alleged online remarks, has long claimed that Hollywood runs on illusion, and that includes love itself. Her philosophy is simple. Everything in Hollywood is business. Every smile, every red carpet kiss, every accidental paparazzi photo, all of it serves a purpose. And when it no longer serves that purpose, when the narrative doesn't sell, it ends. If you trace Nicole Kidman's story, that claim becomes eerily fitting. Let's go back. Long before Keith Urban, there was Tom Cruise. It was the 1990s, the golden era of tabloid fascination and blockbuster fame. Nicole was just 23 when she met Tom on the set of Days of Thunder. He was already one of the biggest stars in the world. Powerful, magnetic, untouchable. She was a rising actress from Australia, shy but brilliant. Within a year, they were married, and for the next decade, they became the image of Hollywood perfection. Red carpets, premieres, interviews, the couple was everywhere. Tom would say, "I love this woman more than anything." Nicole would look up at him with the same radiant smile that would later captivate the world again, years later with Keith Urban. But behind that perfect image, something darker was growing. When they divorced in 2001, the shock was seismic. Nicole was blindsided. She famously said, "I thought our marriage was perfect." And that's when the first cracks in her fairy tale image appeared. Candace's alleged claim that Hollywood marriages are built for cameras, not for hearts, found its first echo there. Because even then, fans were left asking, how could a marriage that looked so perfect on the outside crumble so suddenly? Rumors swirled about control, about Scientology, about the cost of being in love with one of the most powerful men in Hollywood. And yet Nicole stayed silent. No interviews, no tell-all books. She simply walked away. Young, heartbroken, and in the eyes of the public, strangely dignified. 2 decades later, that same silence returned. Only this time, it wasn't Tom Cruise's shadow she was escaping. It was something more subtle, the quiet exhaustion of maintaining perfection for nearly 20 years with Keith Urban. Candace's alleged theory rests on this repeating pattern, that Hollywood women like Nicole, intelligent, accomplished, and poised, are often used as emotional stabilizers for male stars. They humanize them. They make them relatable. They soften the brand. And when the male career stabilizes, the marriage quietly dissolves. Was Keith Urban any different? For years, he credited Nicole with saving him. He struggled with addiction, and she stood by him, even checking him into rehab just months after their wedding. Fans called her an angel. The media framed it as proof of true love. But Candace's interpretation of that narrative is more cynical. She allegedly said that Nicole's support wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. It helped reshape Keith's public image from reckless country singer to family man. It made him safe, marketable, desirable to the mainstream. In Candace's words, Nicole didn't just marry Keith, she rebranded him. For nearly 2 decades, that brand thrived. Every award show, every red carpet, every heartfelt Instagram caption reinforced the same message. They were the exception. But what if being the exception was part of the act? Hollywood runs on stories. And a perfect marriage, especially one that crosses genres, movie royalty meets country music, is a goldmine for publicity. It draws in 2 audiences, 2 industries, 2 worlds. And when those worlds merge, the brand becomes unstoppable. For 19 years, that's exactly what Nicole and Keith represented. Unity across art forms. And for 19 years, it worked. But as their daughters grew, and Keith's touring schedule intensified, cracks started to show. Fans noticed Nicole appearing alone more often. Award shows without Keith, movie premieres without his arm around her waist. Still, the public narrative stayed firm. They were fine, just busy, still in love. Candace's alleged commentary challenged that facade head-on. She reportedly said, "You'll never see the truth in their eyes, only the version of it they're selling." That statement hit a nerve. Because in the social media age, we don't just consume celebrity stories. We participate in them. We like, share, repost, and comment. We help sustain the illusion. So when Nicole filed for divorce with 0 drama, no emotional meltdown, no financial conflict, just clean paperwork and silence, it felt too neat, too controlled, too produced. Candace's followers began connecting dots that, to them, formed a clear picture. Nicole's previous marriage to Tom Cruise, powerful man, public perfection, sudden collapse. Her second marriage to Keith Urban. Same pattern, same silence. The conclusion? Hollywood love is scripted and the audience never sees the director's cut. But here's the irony. Nicole herself might be fully aware of that system. She's one of the few who survived it twice and came out stronger each time. Unlike other stars whose divorces destroy their reputations, Nicole's image only grew more respected. Her silence became her brand, her restraint, her power. Candace Owens' alleged theory might accuse her of participating in illusion, but maybe Nicole has simply learned how to survive in it. Because in Hollywood, survival isn't about truth, it's about control. And control is something Nicole Kidman has mastered. After her split from Tom, she rebuilt her career with precision. Oscar wins, critically acclaimed performances. She became the face of elegance and endurance. No scandal, no mess, no public breakdowns. Candace's perspective, however, sees that same restraint as evidence of artificiality. She believes Hollywood grooms its stars to maintain optics over authenticity. And that's why, in her view, Nicole's divorce from Keith wasn't tragic. It was inevitable. Because when the performance stops being profitable, emotionally, financially, or publicly, the curtain must close. Still, what if both things are true? What if Nicole and Keith's marriage was real, but it was also a performance? After all, in Hollywood, authenticity and artifice are rarely separate. Actors spend their lives blurring that line, living in character, then stepping out of it for interviews, only to step back in again for the next role. Maybe love for them works the same way. Keith once said in an interview, "We're both in this circus, but we try to keep the tent calm." That sentence now sounds haunting. Because maybe that's exactly what they were doing, keeping the tent calm while the audience applauded. And when the applause faded, they quietly packed up the show and moved on. Candace's alleged critique that Hollywood marriages are rehearsed, not lived, becomes unsettling when you realize how few celebrity couples escape the same fate. Brad and Angelina, Ben and Jennifer, Tom and Nicole, now Nicole and Keith. Different faces, same pattern. It's as if every Hollywood love story has an invisible expiration date written in invisible ink, activated the moment the cameras stop caring. But perhaps what makes Nicole Kidman unique isn't the illusion. It's her ability to own it. Unlike many, she doesn't fight the narrative. She doesn't deny it. She simply steps through it untouched. That's power. Quiet, deliberate power. Candace Owens, on the other hand, represents the opposite energy. Loud, combative, disruptive. She thrives on exposing what others protect. So when she allegedly said, "They're all pretending," it wasn't just about Nicole. It was about the entire Hollywood ecosystem. The publicists, the managers, the magazines, the fans, everyone playing their part in keeping the fantasy alive. And in a strange way, she's right. Hollywood depends on our belief in its illusions. It needs us to root for love stories, to mourn heartbreaks, to debate authenticity. Because that emotional investment keeps the machine running, Nicole and Keith's divorce, for all its calmness, reignited that fascination. People couldn't look away. Not because of scandal, but because of its absence. The silence became louder than any fight could have been. Candace's followers saw that silence as confession. Nicole's fans saw it as grace. And the rest of the world? They saw it as entertainment. Because that's what Hollywood does best. It turns real life into content. And even when the movie ends, the credits keep rolling. In the end, maybe the real illusion isn't the marriage. Maybe it's the audience's belief that we were ever watching the truth. Nicole Kidman, calm as ever, walks into another role. Keith Urban heads back on tour, guitar in hand. Candace Owens continues to speak her truth, whether or not anyone agrees. 3 people, 3 versions of reality, and 1 shared stage. Hollywood, the greatest performance of them all. In Hollywood, silence can be louder than confession. It can destroy rumors, or it can feed them. It can mean peace, or it can mean power. And when Nicole Kidman filed for divorce from Keith Urban, her silence wasn't just noticeable, it was deafening. No statements, no interviews, no emotional quotes leaked to the press. Just a single legal filing, a custody plan, and then nothing. In an era when celebrities use Instagram notes to tell their side of the story, Nicole said absolutely nothing. And somehow, that said everything. To some, it was dignity. To others, it was control. But to Candace Owens and her growing online following, that silence was strategy. Because in their view, Nicole didn't need to defend herself. The system she's part of would do it for her. The Hollywood public relations machine is designed for this. It doesn't need a voice. It needs an image. And Nicole's image has always been untouchable. Candace allegedly pointed out that Nicole's silence serves a purpose. It keeps her brand pure. She never looks messy. She never looks vulnerable. She never looks human in the way most of us do when our lives fall apart. Instead, she walks through the wreckage like a ghost in a designer gown, poised, mysterious, and completely unshaken. And that's why people can't stop talking about her. The divorce might have been simple on paper, but emotionally, it struck a nerve. Because every viewer projected their own meaning onto her silence. Was she cold? Was she calculating? Or was she protecting herself and her children from the circus that had devoured her once before? The truth might be a mix of all three. When Nicole split from Tom Cruise in 2001, she was blindsided and the world watched her break. The tabloids tore her apart. The paparazzi followed her everywhere, and every late-night comedian had a punchline about her failed marriage. That trauma never left her. So when this second marriage began to falter, she didn't repeat her old mistakes. She controlled the ending. Candace's alleged theory that Hollywood love is scripted finds its strongest evidence not in the romance, but in the exit. Because every Hollywood couple ends the same way. An official statement, a plea for privacy, a wave of public sympathy, and then rebranding. The actors move on to their next roles. The musicians drop new songs. The PR teams spin heartbreak into inspiration. It's not just survival, it's marketing. Nicole's silence fits perfectly into that rhythm. It gives nothing. It promises nothing. It leaves space for curiosity. And curiosity sells better than confession. Within weeks of the filing, her projects were trending again. The Perfect Couple, 9 Perfect Strangers, Expats, all suddenly back in the headlines, all framed around her strength, her independence, her mysterious allure. And that's what Candace's followers noticed. They claimed Nicole's heartbreak wasn't being mourned, it was being monetized. Now that might sound cynical, but in Hollywood, cynicism is just realism with better lighting. Candace Owens, for her part, allegedly used this moment to make a broader point about celebrity culture. She compared Hollywood's relationship narrative to reality television. Produced, rehearsed, emotionally manipulative. Every image you see, she reportedly said, was chosen by someone with an agenda. Nothing is spontaneous. And whether you agree with her or not, the evidence is everywhere. A picture of Nicole walking through an airport, serene, sunglasses on, flawless hair. A close-up shot from a movie set, smiling, radiant, untouched by the headlines. No tears, no exhaustion, no anger, just control. Always control. That image is powerful. It tells the audience, I am unbothered. And that message, silent, unspoken, protects her more effectively than any statement could. It's why people still trust her, why brands still call her, why studios still build films around her name. Candace, however, sees that as part of the illusion. She allegedly argues that Hollywood conditions its stars to perform resilience, that they don't recover, they act like they do. And audiences, desperate for stability in an unstable world, believe it. In that sense, Nicole's calm isn't just a coping mechanism, it's product packaging. But to understand her silence, you also have to understand what it cost her to speak before. Back in 2001, during her divorce from Tom Cruise, Nicole spoke too soon. She gave one emotional interview where she said, "My life collapsed. The tabloids devoured it. Every vulnerable quote became a headline. Every tear became a photo op." She learned her lesson the hard way. In Hollywood, truth is never safe. So when this divorce came, she said nothing. Not out of coldness, but out of experience. She knows the game. And in a world where everyone's talking, the one who stays quiet wins. Candace Owens' alleged commentary views that silence differently. She sees it as part of a machine, a system that rewards the illusion of perfection. A system that teaches women like Nicole to hide pain behind Prada and smile for the cameras while their world resets behind closed doors. In Candace's worldview, that's the trade-off, fame for freedom. You can have one but never both. And maybe she's right. Because when you look closely, Nicole's life does seem choreographed. Her public appearances follow a pattern. Elegant dress, measured words, graceful exits. No chaos, no improvisation. Even her friendships reflect that same structure. Safe, selective, controlled. She's surrounded by publicists, stylists, managers, directors, people who depend on her image as much as she does, and that image must never crack. That's what Candace calls the invisible contract. You don't sign it with ink, you sign it with silence. Still, it's impossible to ignore what that silence has given Nicole. Freedom from scandal, freedom from pity, freedom to move forward untouched. In an industry where most stars burn out from overexposure, Nicole learned to disappear in plain sight. And that's what makes her fascinating. She's both present and unreachable, visible yet invisible. You can watch her, admire her, speculate about her, but you'll never truly know her. Candace Owens' theory that they're all pretending hits hardest because it feels true even when it isn't. Because so much of Hollywood is pretending. Pretending to be okay. Pretending to be happy. Pretending that the spotlight isn't burning. But maybe Nicole's silence isn't pretense. Maybe it's survival. Maybe she's not performing perfection. Maybe she's protecting peace. After all, she's lived through what few could endure. The glare of global fame, 2 public divorces, decades of gossip. And through it all, she's never fallen apart in front of us. That kind of restraint doesn't come from manipulation. It comes from exhaustion. From knowing that once you give the world your pain, it will never give it back. Keith Urban, meanwhile, has chosen a different path. He's back on tour, his music filled with melancholy and nostalgia. Some say his songs reveal the emotions Nicole hides. Others think they're just art. Another layer of performance in a world built on it. Either way, the story keeps evolving. Candace's alleged commentary continues to echo online. Dissected on YouTube, debated on podcasts, quoted in gossip blogs. Her phrase, "they're all pretending," has become shorthand for a cultural fatigue with celebrity perfection. People are tired of the act. They crave authenticity, even if it's messy, even if it's raw. And maybe that's why Nicole's silence feels so haunting, because it makes us wonder, what is she hiding? Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Maybe she's just choosing not to give us what we think we're entitled to. Her emotions. That's what makes her such a compelling symbol. She's not just an actress anymore. She's an idea. The idea that a woman can endure everything, say nothing, and still win. Candace Owens calls it illusion. Others call it resilience. But either way, it works. Because no matter what anyone says, whether she's accused of pretending or praised for her poise, Nicole Kidman remains exactly what Hollywood needs her to be, untouchable. And in this industry, that's the real secret. Not the fame, not the money, not even the love. It's the ability to stay untouched by the chaos you create. So when Candace Owens says they're all pretending, maybe she's half right. Maybe Hollywood is pretending. Maybe the image of happiness, of unity, of fairy tale love, it's all a show. But the pain, the silence, the composure, those are real. Because to survive in Hollywood, you don't fake strength. You manufacture it. And Nicole Kidman, for better or worse, has become its most flawless product.